You're listening to Mr. Thursday Night. Now here's Brett Gombita.
4-1-1 in the preseason. Now starts the real season though, so welcome to episode 4 of Mr. Thursday Night 2025, the first regular season episode. It's the Cowboys taking on the Eagles. The NFL kickoff to 2025. We'll have a recap of the final week of the preseason, as well as some fantasy starts and sits, although that segment is modified a little bit from last year, as well as looking at the Cowboys and Eagles drafts, talking about some local ties, of course, as well as what everyone comes to see. At least I think so. The prediction for tonight's game. We'll have a twist on that too. Let's get right into it, recapping the preseason finale. It's been a couple of weeks now, so you guys might have forgot. The Steelers beat the Panthers 19-10. That made my record 3-1-1. It was a struggle of a game for the Steelers, but ultimately they end up victorious. Struggled early on, but put some points up on the board. The turning point in this one was Skylar Thompson right before the half. It looked like the Steelers could just kneel on the ball or run the clock out to end the half. But Skylar Thompson throws a 53-yard bomb to Scotty Miller to get the Steelers in field goal range, and Ben Sauls tied the game at 10 going into the half. The Steelers defense had a second half shutout. Pittsburgh put up 3 field goals and won this one 19-10. And in our later window game, this one was all Giants, 42-10. As I said last week, the QB play for the Giants in this one was much better. Drake May for the Patriots only threw 1 pass in this game. Ben Woolridge played the rest of the game, threw a pick 6. And yeah, QB play was better for the Giants. Didn't expect this one to be quite a blowout, but I did have the Giants, so that led me to my 4-1-1 preseason record. In the last 2 preseasons of this show, I'm 9-2-1. I'm hoping that success translates to the regular season here. We'll see. And before we move on to the regular season, let's name your preseason finale Mr. Thursday Night Player of the Week. It's going to kicker Ben Sauls. He was 4 for 4 on field goals in this game for the Steelers, hit an extra point as well. He might not have won the Pittsburgh place-kicking job. It might not have even been a battle in the first place. But Ben Sauls might have just proved himself as a specialist in the NFL. He hasn't signed with the team yet, but teams are going to come calling. There's always a kicker injury somewhere out there. And kickers are people too. Sorry, Tommy DeVito, I know you played great. I can't give this award to a quarterback every week, so I'm showing some love to the special teamers out there. Ben Sauls, you are my preseason finale, Mr. Thursday Night Player of the Week. And now we'll bring back an old segment from last year, tuned it up a little bit this year. It's your fantasy starts and sits. Last year I was 59 for 125, a 47% hit rate. That could be higher. I hope it's higher this year. Last year after week 5 I was at 58%, so I fell off in that second half of the year. I've tuned it up a little bit this year, made a little bit of a change. I'm going to use a Thursday night player in each position group. So there will be a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end, all from the Thursday night football game. It wasn't like that last year, but I figured this will be a better way to incorporate the name of the show more, as this is a Thursday night football show. So we'll dive right into this. The QB start, it's obviously Jalen Hurts, the rushing upside. I bet he has at least 1 tush push in this game, as well as his receivers. Nothing's changed on this offense, really, at least in the playmaking positions. So Hurts still has his guys. He still has Saquon out of the backfield to maybe throw a couple to as well. Jalen Hurts is my QB start this week. My QB sit is Justin Fields against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Justin Fields is coming over from the Steelers, so I think Mike Tomlin and company know his style. They're going to have QB spies on him to limit that running ability. And this game is more than likely going to be a defensive struggle. Both teams get off to slow starts. Rodgers, a lot of slow starts last year with the Jets. Steelers, one of the worst opening drive teams, really just period. I think this will be a defensive game, and Justin Fields is not going to hit his fantasy projection this week. Now on to running back. My start is Alvin Kamara. I read a report earlier in the day that he's going to get a bulk of the carries in the running game, and he also has some of the best receiving upside in the league out of the entire running back position. No matter who's at quarterback for the Saints, it will be Rattler week 1, but I'm sure that'll change throughout the year. No matter who's there, they should look for Alvin Kamara. He's going to be that check down guy. As he's been his whole career, he's been a great receiving back. I think he catches maybe 5 or 6 passes this week. Who knows? And I think he's going to beat his projection as well. So start Alvin Kamara against the Arizona Cardinals. That leaves the running back sit for the Thursday night game. You thought I was benching Saquon Barkley? Well, you'd be wrong. I'm benching Javonte Williams. Main reason for this one is game script, really. I think once the Cowboys get behind, kind of tipping my pick here for later in the episode, but once the Cowboys get behind, they're not going to hand the ball off. They're going to want to run the ball. And plus, you got Miles Sanders, who could possibly take some carries away from Javonte if running is heavily in the script in this game. But Javonte Williams, I'd sit him this week just strictly off the fact that once Dallas gets down, they're going to want to throw. Moving on to wide receiver, I've got fellow NFC East mate Terry McLaurin as my start. I think he's ready to play and ready to get going after that recent contract extension. Giants don't have that great of a secondary. Terry McLaurin fired up and motivated. The wide receiver sit, that leaves me here with a Eagle Cowboy. I'm going with a guy who's in his first game with a new team that I just can't trust. That's George Pickens. There was a lot of inconsistency with him in his time in Pittsburgh. There were some games where he finished with negative yards. I'm not saying this is going to be one of those games, but I think he falls below his projection here in his Cowboys debut. I'll show some love to his teammate, though. Jake Ferguson is my tight end start of the week, and it's because of that familiarity that he has with Dak Prescott. Ferguson's always been that guy that Prescott can just rely on if everything else is covered, that security blanket, really. I think Ferguson embraces that role tonight and catches a handful of passes, beats his projection, maybe scores a touchdown. In the tight end sit, I'm going with another guy in that MetLife Stadium Week 1 matchup. Pat Freiermuth is my tight end sit. The addition of Jonnu Smith, I feel like, is going to take away from what Freiermuth can do. And plus, Aaron Rodgers and Pat Freiermuth have never played in an actual game together. Yeah, they've taken reps in training camp, joint practice, whatnot. But an actual live game rep, Aaron Rodgers didn't play at all in the preseason, so we don't know how these two are going to click. So I think for that reason, you have to sit Pat Freiermuth. I don't know if I'll go 8 for 8. I'm not even sure if I've ever gone 8 for 8 before. But I think that's a solid list. Maybe 6 or 7. Find out next week when I come back with the Week 2 starts and sits. Let's look at the Cowboys offseason. Tyler Booker in the first round. Cowboys have always had stud offensive linemen. Zach Martin just retired. It's been a number of years, but Travis Frederick was there. Booker's kind of going to be that guy that succeeds Zach Martin out of Alabama. He's got good size. I'm sure he's going to be just fit on that Cowboys offensive line. Donovan Ezaraku in round 2 out of Boston College. He led the ACC in sacks last year, 16.5. Might not be a day one starter, but he's definitely going to get worked in this Cowboys defense, especially with Micah Parsons not being there anymore, and Ezaraku being one of those guys that can rush the passer. Now this next pick, this one's a question mark. Cowboys are taking a chance on this guy. Siobhan Revel Jr. might have been a first-round pick had he stayed healthy, but he got injured in September, missed the entire college football season. He's the DB out of East Carolina. I'm not sure what this pick entails, but this could be a fun one to follow along with for Cowboys fans. Could be a fun boom or bust potential pick. Later in the draft, they snag Jadon Blue. Looking forward to seeing this guy if he gets a shot here. Been a little bit banged up. He might be behind Miles Sanders and Javonte Williams. But I'm a fan of the late running back pick, the late round running back. Kyron Williams, look at him. He's top 10 in the league, maybe top 7. 5th round pick right there. You don't need to draft a running back super high when you have these guys breaking out. And not to go on a tangent here, but the last 2 Steeler running backs to get contract extensions were both undrafted. Willie Parker, Jalen Warren. Le'Veon Bell never got a contract extension. He was a 3rd round pick. Same with James Conner. Same with 1st round pick Najee Harris. The Steelers didn't extend his contract. Running backs don't need to be picked high. Sorry. There's exceptions to that, by the way. Saquon's amazing. Getting into the Micah Parsons trade, though. Traded to the Packers for Kenny Clark, defensive tackle, and 2 first-round picks. Parsons then signs the largest edge rusher deal in NFL history, largest non-QB deal in NFL history. Anytime a star player signs a deal nowadays, that's what the headline is. Episode 2 of this podcast, I said, edge rushers are soon going to be worth $46, $47 million. But I didn't think it would be this soon. I didn't think it would be 2 episodes removed from when I said that. Good for the Packers, though. They had money to spend. They went out and made a big move. They're all in this year. This might be a team that goes deep. And Parsons is going to return to Dallas in Week 4 during Sunday Night Football. This guy grew up rooting for the Cowboys, only wanting to play for them. Really, this falling out speaks levels about the displeasure that he felt from the organization. And Jerry Jones, it doesn't make sense what he's doing. This team might finish last in the NFC East now. A first-time head coach, how is he going to manage all this talent? Those guys are going to demand the ball. The defense just got a lot weaker now that they traded one of the best players in the NFL. This team could finish last in the NFC East behind the New York Giants, and I wouldn't be surprised. The Eagles, on the other hand, these guys know how to draft. We've seen that in years past. Look at their Super Bowl team. A lot of those guys were young Eagle draft picks making an impact. This year they get Jahad Campbell in the first round to add another stud linebacker to an already stacked linebacker core. And Jahad could see some early time here with Nakobe Dean still recovering from an injury. So maybe we'll see Jahad Campbell making some plays tonight. Then they get Andrew Makuba in the second round, who led the SEC in interceptions last year. Also has a chance at a starting role here later on. Ty Robinson in the 4th, as they did not have a third-round pick. They'll probably get Robinson in somewhere once those Georgia boys need a break. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, those guys will play the most snaps at the D tackle position. But it's good to have a rotational guy you can get in there. How about the disrespect that Jalen Hurts has been getting online? I talked about this during the preseason when the Eagles played, but Cam Newton said Jalen Hurts isn't a top 10 quarterback. A lot of ESPN polls have had 8 other QBs ranked higher than the QB that won the Super Bowl last year. I'm not saying Hurts did it alone, but he's being harshly criticized and unfairly criticized because he has a good team around him. That shouldn't be how it is. This guy's a winner. He's a proven winner. He's one of the better dual-threat QBs in the league. It's not like he can only score rushing touchdowns off of tush pushes. He averages 4.6 yards per carry over his career. And people were just putting him down because he has that talent around him. Maybe one day we'll see him play without a star offense, and maybe this will be all wrong, but for the time being, Jalen Hurts is probably a top 7 QB in the league, at least in my opinion. What about some of the guys in this game that have local ties here in Pennsylvania? It's a whole lot of Penn State. I don't think the Eagles have a single former Steeler on their roster. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But a couple of Penn State guys in Saquon Barkley, Tariq Castro-Fields, and Jahan Dotson. And then on the Dallas side of the ball, Miles Sanders went to Penn State, actually succeeded Saquon Barkley in the backfield upon Saquon's declaring for the draft. One former Steeler in George Pickens, who will be making his Cowboys debut tonight. And a WPIAL alum, Malik Hooker from Newcastle. Got to show some love to the WPIAL. But that's it for your local ties. I think it's time we get into our stats and make our prediction for this game, Week 1 here. Cowboys at Eagles. Let's talk about it. We got Trayvon Diggs and Tyler Guyton entering this game questionable for the Cowboys at the time of recording. Landon Dickerson, offensive lineman for Philly, sounds like he should be good to go in this one. He's going to be a key piece up front, as he always is. Over-under in the spread, Eagles are favored by 8.5, and the over-under is 47.5. This is being recorded at 12:14 a.m. on Wednesday night, so these lines can shift, and they will shift because I think America's betting on the Eagles in this one. I could see that line going all the way up to 10.5 by the time I wake up in the morning. Most recent matchup between these two teams, you look at last year, 2 blowouts. 34-6 in favor of the Eagles and 41-7 in favor of the Eagles. However, Dak didn't play in either of those games. Cooper Rush started both of those. The last one, though, Kenny Pickett started that game for the Eagles. Actually was relieved by Tanner McKee in that one. So the Eagles' backups putting in work there, getting that big win. So Dak hasn't played Philly in 2 years. In the past 10 meetings, actually, both teams have 5 wins. So you go back to the start of the decade, 2020. Eagles have 5 wins against the Cowboys. Cowboys have 5 wins against the Eagles. All-time records for the QBs. Dak is 9-4 against Philly. Hurts is 3-3 against Dallas as the starter. I say that because during Hurts' rookie year, he was backing up Carson Wentz. Might have got a couple of throws in, and Philly won that game. On Thursday night last year, both teams were undefeated. That's going to change this year. One of these teams will no longer be undefeated in Thursday night football when it's just week 1. Stay tuned in a minute here as we get through these last couple stats. The Eagles were 8-1 at home in 2024. One of the better home teams in the league and one of the better home teams we've seen here in this 21st century in a single season. Cowboys on the road 5-3, a much better record than their home record from last year of 2-7. Thursday night in general seemed to bode well for the home teams in 2024. Home teams went 13-6 overall in 2024. And if you see where I'm going with this, I'm taking the team at home. I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles in this one, 31-17. I feel like this is pretty self-explanatory here. I don't see anything stopping Philly other than themselves in this one. Maybe a Super Bowl hangover, maybe a slow start, but I think this one's going to be all Philadelphia Eagles. I usually don't predict a multi-score game. I'm feeling different about this one. So thank you guys for listening. Episode 4 on the season. First regular season episode. I'll see you guys next week. Week 2, Washington at Green Bay. Hopefully I come back 1-0.